Circling back to our top story, former U.S. President Donald Trump's legal team is looking to challenge every potential issue once charges against him are unsealed tomorrow. This after a grand jury indicted Trump on hush money allegedly paid to a porn star before the 2016 presidential election.
Trump's lawyers, who assert that the charges are politically motivated to dent his 2024 presidency bid, are also expected to file a motion to dismiss those charges.
All right, for more insight on the legal troubles facing Donald Trump and the wider implications for American politics, let's speak now with Ben Koltun. He's a senior research analyst with Beacon Policy Advisors. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. So this indictment's still under seal, but even in absence of the knowledge of the specific charges against Mr. Trump, could we at least guess what the strength of the indictment will be, and what would this mean for his presidential bid?
Sure thing. I'd say this indictment in New York, still waiting to see the extent of this, and there's potential indictments on the horizon and other investigations, leaves the former president endangered legally, but emboldened politically among Republican voters. And so I think there's a big surprise among kind of Americans that this is the first case among the different investigations, the one in New York about these hush money payments for an extramarital affair, that there is somewhat on shaky legal grounds. But again, we're still kind of waiting to hear the details for tomorrow when the grand jury and the indictments are unveiled to the broader public. But politically, this does help Trump in the near term with the GOP base. His presidential polling improved post-indictment with a rallying around the flag event for the GOP. Trump's indictment embodies this GOP distrust of institutions, which Republicans say are kind of corrupt and run by the far left. And then in terms of his kind of political positioning in the primaries, a lot of his would-be challengers like Governor Ron DeSantis are coming to his defense and decrying kind of the overreach of liberal prosecutions. So I'd say in the short term, this is looking good for Trump politically, but the long-term outlook for Trump is more challenging. Beyond the legal threats, the general electorate in America is more weary and put off by the Trump theatrics than the GOP base is. And so President Biden, who may be announcing his reelection campaign as soon as this month, will once again try to appeal to moderate and swing voters in a way that Trump isn't, in promising a return to normalcy and just good governance instead of all these theatrics from the indictment.
The former president has said he will speak at his Florida resort Tuesday evening following his return from the Manhattan courthouse. We perhaps shouldn't be surprised, but can he comment on the case while it's running its course?
Yes, there's what you can do in theory and what you can do in practice. In theory, a defendant wants to kind of minimize the noise as much as possible and not to kind of upset the judge or the jury and seeming like he is obstructing justice or he's trying to interfere with the deliberations. But in practice, this is the biggest indictment perhaps in American history of the public official, the first time that a president or former president has been indicted. And so the rules don't necessarily apply to kind of the procedures for Trump, and that maybe his lawyers want him to tamp down, but he sees a political purpose for himself to kind of ramp up these attacks. And I think a strategy for Trump and for his legal team is to attack and to delay. And his hope is that, if the case goes on for a while in New York, and this could go on for well into next year, it's going to be running up right against the 2024 election. And that just makes it even more difficult for prosecutors, for a jury, and for a judge to ensure that this trial is done in a fair way and is not sullied by perhaps presidential politics. Mm-hmm. And in the case that President Trump is elected president in 2024, it creates a whole other bunch of questions, legal and constitutional questions, of whether it's okay for a local prosecutor or prosecutors in general to hamper a man who's ascendant to the most powerful job in the United States. And so I think that is the kind of the criteria and the aim that Trump is kind of spouting out publicly against the judge, against the trial, against the prosecutor writ large.
Yeah, and Ben, also for some, it's a necessary step. For others, it's a witch hunt. What are the possibility of deeper divisions forming in the American society as the case plays out?
Oh, it's undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire that we've seen in the past half dozen years or so in American politics. That when you're looking at polling right now, you see that a majority of Americans think that this prosecution by the Manhattan DA is political, but a majority of Americans believe that if a presidential candidate is charged with criminal crimes, they should not be running for president. And you see that divide going along partisan lines of Democrats and Republicans. And so for Republicans, there's the view that this is kind of a political persecution, as Trump would say, that is being performed by kind of liberal prosecutors. And Trump has this knack, this is kind of his playbook for a long time, of trying to rile his supporters. He kind of mentioned threats that there could be death and destruction from this. He is saying that this is the greatest kind of political witch hunt in American history. And he has this microphone that there's not much pushback from other Republican leaders that kind of riles up his base. And so we're going to see tomorrow and in kind of the weeks and months ahead a real increase in the temperature of an already hot political system in America.
And this is, as you're alluding to, just one of several legal cases being brought against the former president. There's one for his role in the January 6th riots, his attempts to steal the 2020 election, taking classified documents, among others. We're just at the start of this, aren't we?
Yes, and I think that's why it's careful that you don't want to make too many early conclusions. That right now, Trump is benefiting. It's clear that he's benefiting with Republican voters. But the Iowa caucuses, which are the first primaries of the 2024 election, they're 10 months away. The 2024 general election is 19 months away. There is still a lot that could change in terms of the Republican response to these allegations, to these prosecutions, just the extent of these prosecutions, and how Democrats respond. And so I think we're still very much in the early days, and there are a lot of known unknowns, as you'd say, about kind of the legal and political outlook for President Trump.
And Ben, we have a former president being indicted as he's running for a presidency once again. How much of a stress test is it for the U.S. judicial system?
Oh, it's probably one of the biggest stress tests in recent memory. I think that when President Biden was elected, one of his calling cards was he's going to protect the independence of federal investigators and prosecutors. The reason why he appointed the Attorney General Merrick Garland was because Merrick Garland was seen as an impartial member of kind of once the judiciary, and it would be kind of an impartial member of kind of the DOJ. And so instilling trust into our legal system is paramount for American democracy. And if Republicans, or if half the country believes that the court system is rigged against Republicans, and if they feel like they are being attacked by liberal prosecutors and a liberal FBI and Department of Justice, I think that's a real risk to the safety and kind of law and order of America. And so I think this is something that is not lost on many prosecutors at both the state and federal level. And so they are going to be extra careful in trying to, one, balance that like no one is above the law, but also two, try to ensure as best as possible that they are not targeting someone based off of their political leanings or their political views. And so this is going to be a very tough balancing act, not just for the Manhattan DA, but also for in Atlanta, the district attorney there, as well as federal prosecutors that are looking into Trump's actions leading up to January 6th, and also his kind of handling of documents at Mar-a-Lago. And so this is certainly a very big stress test, as you would say, of America's legal and judicial system.
Ben, thank you for your insight this morning. We'll continue to watch along, as we sure you will as well. Thanks very much for that. Ben, speaking to us there, he is the Ben Koltun, Beacon Policy Advisors. Thank you for joining us.